Good day on Thursday. Oh, Wednesday, sorry. Is it Wednesday or Thursday? Thank you so much for keeping it. There's a bit of confusion, I don't know why. But anyway, it's another great morning. This is GBS Morning Extra. Thank you so much for choosing GBS. And of course, remember to join the conversation 21144. That's our SMS line. And of course, hashtag GBS Morning Extra. That's on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, of course. And today it's all about education. There's been a lot talked about the new curriculum, that is career-based curriculum. There is so many questions about the system, and today we'll be talking more about it, and especially the people who are directly affected. Those are the teachers, and today we have Mohidi Ochoi. Good morning, Mohidi.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Hope we are ready for the show.
Sure.
Asante sana kwa kuja.
Yeah,
okay, we'll be discussing all these issues, matters education, CBC. First of all, what's your take about this CBC?
Generally, we can say it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing because we're moving away from what we call summative evaluation, an evaluation which is done at the end of the course. So when you're talking about primary school, which is done at standard 8, which might not really reflect the ability and the competence of a student. So generally speaking about the CBC, we can say it's a good thing, okay, if only. As the conversation goes on, I can give my take on why I'm saying if only. Okay. But generally we can say it's a good thing.
So the problem is if.
If.
Okay.
Yeah. So you
tell us why you have included if in your statement later on. And of course, let's start with the news updates this morning. And we start in Parliament. And Gatundu Member of Parliament, Moses Kuria, has come out clearly to declare his dissatisfaction with the MP's allowances, especially the 96,000 and the house allowance amounted to 250,000 Kenya shillings.
Gatundu South Member of Parliament Moses Kuria has differed with his colleague of their proposed domestic substance allowance, terming it unjustifiable. In his letter addressed to the Clerk of the National Assembly, Kuria has said that there is nothing that warrants the payment of the allowance for the MPs who are on official parliamentary business in Nairobi. The Gatundu South Legislature has further told the National Assembly that he will not be interested in pocketing the allowances and has instead directed them to channel the money to his constituency should the bill be signed. National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi defended MPs' proposed, arguing that it will boost their morale and solve the quorum hitches in the House. The bill, which is on President Uhuru Kenyatta's table, if effected, will pamper the legislatures with treatments like having a room for visitors, bevy for researchers, uninterrupted internet connectivity, and a room for parliamentary parties to caucus.
And stock market traders have something to smile about after the Nairobi Security Exchange bond hacked for a 6-year high.
Monthly bond turnover at the Nairobi Security Exchange rose to a 6-year high of 69.8 billion Kenyan shillings in June, buoyed by a liquid market that saw investors turn to the secondary market in search of yields. Nairobi Security Exchange data shows that the turnover rose by 28% during the month compared to May, when investors traded at 54.6 billion Kenyan shilling securities. Market liquidity was buoyed by heavy maturities of government papers and its payment of pending bills, coupled with reduced appetite for new borrowing in primary auctions as the government closed its fiscal year. This has depressed the interest rates on offer for new issues, leaving investors to scour the secondary market for higher paying papers. Banks, which are the biggest holder of government domestic debt at 54% or 1.5 trillion Kenyan shillings out of the total debt of 2.78 trillion Kenyan shillings, have seen the liquidity at hand on an upward trend this year. The banking sector liquidity ratio stood at 51% at the end of April, which is the highest level since May 2017. The higher bond turnover in June took the turnover for the first half of 2019 to 352.7 billion Kenyan shillings, which represent 15% increase on the same period last year, when investors traded at 305.9 billion worth of paper. The increase is good news for market intermediaries who depend on commission earnings from bonds and equity trades for revenue. This is especially due to the dip in equities turnover this year as share prices continue to stagnate. Emmanuel Ouma, GBS TV.
And remember to keep it right here on GBS TV during the day. And of course, we have so many stories we are following up for you. So just keep it here. And of course, you can join our conversation. What are your questions about the new curriculum that is a CBC? What's your take? We want to know what you think about it. Do you think that the government has done enough to justify the rollout and of course the full implementation of this new system? What do you think about your child? Is your child ready? And as a parent, are you ready for this new system, or you still think something needs to be done before we fully get into it? Remember the examination issues. It's not clear whether to subject grade 3 students to national examination or assessment. There are so many issues, and of course we'll be discussing all that with Mwalimu here. So, but first of all, let's look at what the dailies have before we venture into that conversation. We start the Daily Nation. It's all about gambling this week. The Daily Nation has been following this gambling story. And shock for gamblers as bet lines blocked. Directive by Betting Control and Licensing Board could see an unspecified amount of cash locked up in accounts of gamblers who use mobile money services to place their bets and receive their wins. And of course, they are also conceived after man's death, no inheritance. Court rules that children born to widow more than 9 months after husband's death should not lay claim to any of his property. And Palzo of 4 murders and double suicide. Former Isuka Central Member of County Assembly Richard Muchesia lived a flashy life, distinguishing himself from his former colleagues by driving top of the range cars. Yesterday, in Ongata Rongai, he shot his wife dead, then turned the gun to himself. On the woman killed killed his family yesterday. That's on Ongata Rongai in Thika Road. Mwalimu, I don't know where to start because we have a story of an MCA who killed his family, former MCA, and then maybe we start with that one. Why, as a teacher, why do you think that as a society, it's like nowadays committing suicide is something now becoming something more of normal?
It's not something new, in as much as we, in our country, something just which is seeming to be on an increasing trend. But elsewhere, we've had these things being done homicides, not only in Kenya, here in the US, they are there, in the UK, they are there. But coming back to our society, then it means there's something wrong with our system. Number one, for someone to take that kind of step, you know, you are doing it to your own people who are very close to you. Talk about your children. I mean, those are people who are really close to you, close to your heart. But when it comes to third level now, I can give 2 reasons. Number one is that an individual is more of becoming hallucinated. Could be there are some expectations here in life, so that now once he's not able to meet the expectations now, then depression comes in. Now when depression comes in, then the only way out is to take me away from this world where I'm experiencing problems. Now, looking at the children, he might be so much attached to his children or her children to a level where he feels or she feels that if I go away, whom am I going to leave my children with? Am I going to leave my children to suffer? So it's better we go with them so that now I don't leave them behind suffering. So that's reason number one. Number two is that as a country, we lack the capacity to deal with such kind of cases. This is a new phenomena. We have not really experienced it, so that we don't have the capacity, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the structures in place to deal with such kind of cases like depression. So such as now, it's left to an individual. We don't really know whether this person is under depression, where this person is under stress. So these are some of the things which we as immediate family members, we as the community, and it's good we are talking about Nyumba Kumi initiative. We are really not really seeing this initiative taking root. So there are a lot of things which are associated with people really committing suicide, even killing their family members.
Okay, and then we have this story of gambling again, something that has become is now almost a crisis in the country. It's affecting almost everyone. It's almost involved in gambling, and we have seen people also committing suicide because they use maybe their salaries, they use maybe their school fees maybe to bet, and then they lost. Do you think now is the right time now for the government to crack the whip?
That thing could have done as early as 2 years or 1 year ago. Remember, when we are talking about gambling here, what's all about is that now we are really training people towards quick money. So if you want to be rich quickly without doing much work, then gambling is the option. And also it depends again with I'm not really condemning the media houses. They also play a great role, because look at the adverts about gambling and how someone is splashed with millions of money only by playing or betting like 20 shillings, as little as 20 shillings, and you get 2 million. So as a youth who was so disillusioned about employment in the country currently, so he says the only way out is to bet, get rich quickly. So when that thing does not really happen, then it takes another step now. What am I going to do? We're about students, university students, betting using school fees, money, or college fee. So at the end of it all, when what he expected to gain, he does not gain it. He has no guts to go back to the parents to demand for the same. So the only way out for him to take my life.
Okay. And of course, I hope you're also addressing the issue in my name, of course.
Yeah.
Because I might assume that maybe, or even some of the staff, maybe, they might be also involved in betting. And of course, let's highlight some of the reasons why the government has denied to renew the licenses for some of the top betting companies in the country. They're citing tax compliance. The betting companies have been requested to prove that they are tax compliant, and of course, there's been an issue that the betting companies only remitted 4 billion Kenya shillings out of 204 billion that they made last year. Condition number 2 is obey the law. All companies are expected to show that they have been operating within the law. And then the issue of liquidity. The betting companies are expected to produce records that show they are sufficiently liquid. And of course, performance. The firms must prove that they have performed well financially for the last 4 years. These are a story that we are also following up. It's a matter of wait and see what will happen. There's also the issue of border, to wear helmet or not to wear helmet. The debate of hygiene rages on. Passengers worry about infections from dirty safety devices. That it turns out their faces are not misplaced at all. The border rules that demand that passengers should also wear helmets as well as the motorists themselves. There is a lot of debate about some customers claiming maybe the helmets are not clean or are not healthy for their skin. So what do you think of that, Malim?
1 or 2 times I've been a victim of circumstances. You take a border, then you are given a helmet. You look at it, it's really very, very dirty. So you wonder the kind of hygienic condition of that kind of helmet. But we are not really looking at the helmets as being the problem per se. There is much which needs to be done within that sector to bring it to sanity. So helmet is just something very small within the broader spectrum of problems bedeviling the border industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, on page 9, Raila warns on Taita Taveta impels. ODM leader Raila Odinga has warned the Taita Taveta County Assembly may have to dissolve should local leaders fail to resolve the budget impasse. Speaking in his office, for the former premier urged the county leaders to find a solution through a dialogue. Because let's look at this, the standard. The standard is has given a priority on the anchor of a Kenya power token scam. Thousands of consumers caught up in multi-billion shilling electricity theft carried out by power farm staff and are not being forced to pay, and are now being forced to pay again for the stolen tokens, leaving many in debt and darkness. Malibu, there's been a lot of questions about electricity bills, and now you see that some of the alleged that some of the staff members are involved in stealing the tokens. Have you been a victim, or and maybe what do you think should be done?
I think the starting point is where we got it wrong. Remember, the Kenya Power and Lighting Company has the monopoly of distributing the power. In as much as we have independent and private power generating companies, but it's the mandate of the Kenya Power to distribute the energy. So in other words, these companies sell to Kenya Power, and the Kenya Power now has all those powers within itself to do what it deems fit. Okay. So number one, we should start by addressing the monopoly aspect of Kenya Power. Remember, from the business point of view, when you are a monopoly in a certain service or industry, then you can dictate terms, and the consumers have no choice, because electricity is becoming part and parcel of our lives. So it's either you have it or you become miserable, in quotes. Mm-hmm. So in other words, we have to start from addressing the monopoly aspect of Kenya Power, in my opinion.
Okay, so the operation is out of monopoly.
Is out of monopoly.
Okay. Yep. And on the same standard, on page 4, they talk about RG DCI in Italy for dams, for the dams stolen cars, that's Kimware and Aror. A team of top security officials in Italy seeking to recover money paid by Treasury for stolen 65 billion Aror and Kimware dams in Elgeyo Marakwet County. Also a story we'll be following up. And about the dams probe, at least 4 charges await individuals, including top government officials. The charges include conspiracy to commit an economic crime, aiding the commission of an economic crime, abuse of office, and negligence of official duty. Those questioned under the caution include CS Rotich and top KVDA managers, DPP, DCI, and the state law office officials are in Italy. And they want the money paid back because the contractor did not deliver what he was paid to deliver. And of course, on the back page, it's all about Kenyans said to light up Monaco. World 1500 meter silver medalist Timothy Cheruiyot is keen to maintain his winning streak at ninth stop of the IAAF Diamond League in Monaco, France. That will start tomorrow. Of course, Kevin Yadiki will be updating you more about the AFCON, what happened yesterday. Gueye fires Senegal into Nations Cup semi-finals. Senegal reached to African semi-finals for the first time since 2006. Yeah. Let's look at the Star. The Star is still talking about Mount Kenya politics, and Uhuru's top secret Mount Kenya meetings. This is after Ruto's camp claimed that the gatherings are aimed at eliminating the DP from 2022 elections. And Central Bank of Kenya governor warns Kenyans against online money lenders. And of course, a woman hanged herself after killing husband and children. The story of depression there. And Kalonzo moves to rebrand Wiper ahead of 2022. The Wiper leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, has embarked on an elaborate strategy to rebrand the party for 2022 polls. The strategy includes kicking out some of the party leaders who are not loyal. Those are disloyal party members, filling the vacant leadership positions in national and grassroots offices, and adopting new name for the outfit to prepare for the coming election. And so a story of a death row. Inmates set free after 27 years behind bars. 2 old men on death row have been released after 27 years in incarceration. Bernard Wambua Mbenzi, 68, and Paul Kituku Mutisia, 76 were yesterday sentenced by High Court. George Odunga, sitting in Machakos. They had been incarcerated for 27 years and 7 months. And of course, they were set free yesterday, according to the Star. And of course, others is about sports. Of course, Kevin Yariki will be discussing that in depth in coming in around 7:40 there to 8. We'll be discussing more about the AFCON and of course what's happening in the world sporting world and transfers in Kenya Premier League. Okay, Mwalimu, let's now talk about the CBC and your if and now it's time. First of all, let's start with for the benefit of viewers watching at home. What's the difference between this CBC and the 844 system?
Before I answer your question, let me put it into context. When we are talking about an education system, it's supposed to serve the interests of the people, and it's supposed to go with the times within our society or the wider international community. Before the CBC now we are talking about, which is in the air all over and some of the controversies surrounding it, we have been having the 844 system since 1985 when it was inaugurated. So when we changed from the former system of 7423, the aim was to align the educational goals with the current situation which was prevailing in the country at that time. So I remember I was among the very first person who went through the system, 844 system. And there were some skills which we were being taught, which were meant to prepare us for life after school. That should be if you never proceeded. So it was supposed to equip you with the skills and the techniques on how to survive after school. Then it has been all through until now we are talking about the CBC now. Foremost, when we are talking about a CBC, we are talking about competence-based curriculum. So here, the big term is competence. So we are looking at the student. And when we are talking about competence here, then it gives us some kind of room to ask ourselves now, what is this? Are we talking about competence here? Number one, you look at the Kenyan Constitution of 2010, it talks about moving away from teacher-centered learning to learner-centered. So in other words, when we are talking about CBC, one, we are trying to align it with the Kenyan Constitution. Then number two, we're also trying to look at it through the Vision 2030. Kenya came up with a blueprint on the economic development of the country, and that's what we call now Vision 2030, which is entangled with the SDGs. So in other words now, we are trying to see a curriculum which is preparing Kenya towards achieving its Vision 2030.
Okay,
and number two...
There's been a, sorry, before we proceed, there's been a lot of questions then, because as it stands, when the free education came in, that is the Kibaki era, it seems there was nothing wrong with the 844 system. It's only in recent years when you have had the problem of unemployment because you have channeling out so many students, and of course the job opportunities are less. And do you think maybe we got it wrong from that point as a country? Maybe the President Kibaki government had a good intention of educating the student, but we did not think about where to take these educated students.
The problem is not about where to take the educated students. The biggest problem lies within how we are preparing these educated students. During our days in the university, I know I was training to become a teacher. So all the 4 years I spent in university was about how to become a teacher. So in other words, my mind was channeled towards becoming a teacher, and so be it to other professionals. So when it comes to graduates and within the education system, not only graduates, at whatever level, our education system does not prepare one beyond or to think outside what is training for. So that's the biggest problem. For instance now, if I were to be trained, if I don't get to be a teacher, then what am I supposed to do? I cannot be circling that I'm looking for a job for 20, 30 years. But what is it that I can do using my skills? So that's the biggest problem, that we are not really sufficiently preparing our students through the education system to take on life after school.
I think the question would be, and it will be back to my question again.
Yes.
I don't think we have had these problems, let's say from 2013 downwards. Although we may say that we had problems with unemployment, some will think that these are government strategy maybe to tackle unemployment, of which that's something that just risen in the last 5 years. That's when the number of unemployed youths has escalated to the level that we have right now. 844 has not had any progress, because if you are trying to be a teacher from there, you are trying to be a teacher and you can teach anything. If you are trying to do business, you have decided to go to business, you can still do business, because up to Form 4, you have learned a lot of things that should prepare you for life in case of anything. I don't think we are something mixed up issues, and maybe we are closing our eyes towards seeing what the other system was providing and what the new one will provide, because the new one is more centered on maybe hand-on skills.
I like the way you are putting it. We've not started experiencing unemployment in the recent past.
I've said it's just escalated in
Yeah.
the recent 5 years. It has been there, but at low levels.
Yeah, because number one, of course, we can say that expanding the education to a larger number of pupils and students can create that kind of scenario where we are channeling out of the systems a lot of graduates, but our economy is not able to absorb these kind of numbers coming out. And this now takes me back again. You're talking about that, let's say I'm a Form 4 graduate.
Yeah.
I've learned so much in high school. I've done business, but is it practical to me? You see, that's why I was saying we are moving away from a teacher-centered kind of learning to a learner-centered kind of learning. I'm looking at business as a subject, just the same way I might be learning history, geography, Swahili, and English, but I'm not really learning the practical aspect of this subject I'm doing now. So how many of us, even the graduates now, coming out of university now, you can tell them now, can you prepare a workable marketing plan, a business plan? Very rare. So that's why I was saying that our education system is more of theoretical oriented. I cram, I pass my examinations, I get my certificate, but these certificates of mine might not be worthy the salt to take me out into the world for employment seeking.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you think the CBC will solve that?
Allow me to go back. We are calling it competence-based kind of curriculum.
Kind of a curriculum.
Yes, kind of a curriculum. Okay. Fine. Looking at the document and what CBC entails, not only in Kenya here and those countries where they have been applied, it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. But as a country, how much and how well are we prepared for the same? A few minutes ago, you played a clip there. The Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly talking about our legislatures need to be given an out allowance to motivate them. How well are our teachers prepared in terms of rolling out this competence-based curriculum? Because it means simply once a student gets to the education system, then teachers are supposed to be evaluating the student at every stage, not only at the final examinations, but along the way. But how well are these teachers prepared in terms of knowing what to assess, what to evaluate, and how to evaluate it. So that's the biggest question, and that's what has been a bone of contention among different stakeholders. Meaning, we could have started from preparing the structures and putting in place infrastructures over the same before rolling out the program.
Okay. And I think the discussion about the new curriculum, as you stated, is based in the 2010 Constitution.
2010.
Yeah. And of course, there has been preparation for all those years. Do you say that maybe you were not prepared, or the teachers were not well prepared for this curriculum?
Teachers have no problem, per se.
Then who is the problem?
Let me give my example. For many years, I was teaching in the 844 system. Then I transited to IGCSE, which are two different curricula. But it took me time, trainings about 3 months before I fit into the system. So I've been doing it. So given sufficient training and facilities, a teacher has no problem. So the problem is, what is this are we put in place as a country over the same? That's the biggest problem. Are we really prepared? Remember, when the year started, you had the media houses were covering about the CBC, and all over the news were parents were confused what to buy in terms of books and whatnot, textbooks, meaning we were not prepared as a state. And if we were, then that kind of confusion could have not arose. So in other words, it's the preparedness from the side of the government.
Okay, let's take a quick breather, then we'll be back. We continue with that. Of course, the issue of there's a lot of question about the issue of preparation.
Yes.
There was a training that was conducted this year, early this year, and some of you teachers did not attend. So we'll be discussing that when we come back. So you can continue sending your question, of course, your comments, or hashtag GBS Morning Extra. Our SMS line is 21144. And of course, we'll be sampling some of your questions as continue. And of course, we'll be hearing this from the teachers themselves who are affected by the whole of this system. So we'll be back in a second or two.
Everywhere GBS. Everywhere GBS.
Good morning once again. This is GBS Morning Extra. Thank you so much for keeping it GBS. And of course, this morning we are talking about competence-based curriculum. That's matters of education. There's been a lot of issues concerning this system, especially the implementation. We have seen teachers' unions opposing it. And of course, they have some grounds why they are opposing it. And of course, today we have the teachers themselves to discuss the issues that are affecting them. We have Mohindi Ochoi, Head of Academics. Mahani, good morning. Good morning again.
Morning again.
Sometimes imekuwa nyingi, but don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
And of course, we are joined by Richard Obori. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
How are you?
Fine.
Naona umefika.
Nashukuru.
Asante sana. First of all, what's your general take about this CBC?
First and foremost, I want to apologize for having come a bit late. I ran into a few issues in the morning, but I'm here.
I understand teachers, you have a lot of work.
Yeah, we do have a lot. You start preparing very early in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, CPC is the way to go. I have to say that. It is the way to go. We have seen several countries review their education systems. And in Kenya, we have taken quite a long period of time. So I want to start by saying CBC is the way to go.
Okay.
The reason being, when you look at the 7 core competency objectives which the new education wants to achieve, they are noble. They are very noble. I'm not saying the other system did not achieve what it wanted to achieve. But you know, changes are good. And throughout the world, or the world over, various countries, they change their systems to suit the prevailing conditions at that particular time. And on my part, I want to say the competency-based curriculum, which has been rolled out from class 1, class 2, class 3, or PP1, PP2, PP3, the way they call it, yeah, that is the way to go.
Okay.
That is the way to go. I support it fully. Even though there are a lot of issues which needs to be addressed. I support also the stand of the union because the concerns they have are valid, 100% valid. When you roll out an education system, the manpower should be trained. I think one of the key areas which they need to address fully is the training, of the teachers. I'm a high school teacher. We are yet to see how the training would be rolled out. But down there at the foundation, that is where we have a problem. And that is what the unions are trying to talk about. And that is why I also support what the unions are saying. So that when we come together, we address some of those ifs, some of those gray areas, then the rollout of the CBC will achieve its main objectives. Why do I say so? If you can give me just a minute. The 7 core competencies, I look at that and I support it. Number 1, for example, communication and collaboration, which we don't see. Number 2, critical thinking and problem solving. Number 3, creativity and imagination. Number 4, citizenship. And the issue of corruption comes in here. Okay. If you look at number 4. Number 5, digital literacy. Number 6, learning to learn. And the last one, self-efficacy. You know, those are key issues which we don't see in the current system.
Okay, so you're saying, so as much as the government claims to have rolled out the program, so far you're not seeing any of those being implemented?
Well, the
especially the
implementation,
collaboration part, because the collaboration part will need that
correct,
all stakeholders now need to be involved.
That is one area where they have failed, because it is number 1, communication and collaboration. Now, we don't see that communication coming, you know, in a very good way. The collaboration, it includes everybody. So even though the Minister of Education is doing quite good in terms of coming up with the policies, but stakeholders, they are very important. The implementers, the teachers themselves, they are very important.
Okay.
Like now, I'm sorry, and I'm not defending anybody here. When the unions came up very strongly yeah, in April, and some teachers didn't attend the trainings, yeah. Some of them are being punished, about 280. Yeah, the punishment, if you ask me, and I have no apologies to make, it's unwarranted. Because you cannot talk about communication and collaboration. I'm not opposing collaboration, and you kill that noble idea.
Okay. And to you, Choi,
Yeah.
the issue of collaboration. Collaboration here means we need to involve the parent, we need to involve the teachers, we need to involve the material suppliers, those are the publishers, they also need to be involved in the process. Do you think so far all these bodies have been involved fully as it should be?
I will not also mince my words. That our political class, who normally come up with the policies, they more of impose it on the people. They don't have that kind of dialogue, okay? I think or even before coming up with this kind of curriculum, of course, as I had mentioned earlier, it's a good thing. But how well did they prepare over the same? How well did they engage the different stakeholders? For instance, in this case, parents are going to play a very critical role to enhance the success of this curriculum. So to teachers and the stakeholders we've talked about, publishers and whatnot. But how well are we really engaging our parents? I don't think the government has done much to engage the parents, in as much as it has also not done very well in engaging those very people who implement the curriculum, the teachers. I talked about go into those deeper village schools. We have seen students in Turkana learning under a tree. Then there is this kind of the digital aspect coming in. We have had how those gadgets, I don't know, they call it, I know how they call them. What were they called? The gadgets which
the class ones was
the laptops.
Yeah. Not really the laptop per se, but I don't know. Yes, we've seen several of them failing. Teachers are talking about 90% of them are not working. Then we are going to base the implementation of this curriculum on such kind of, or anchoring it with the digital platforms. So in this case, are we trying to be honest to the Kenyan people? That's why I was talking about the infrastructures and all those things put in place first before you roll out something. Okay. I remember I told you earlier on that I was a victim from class 8 to Form 4 because we were learning, because the system changed to 8-4-4, 8 years in primary school, and so teachers were not really prepared. We were learning anything, and up including, I don't know what, the Form 4 level also. So they pushed down the Form 5 and 6 curriculum to Form 3 and 4, so everything was amiss until like 5 years later when the curriculum was stabilized. So we are making again the same mistake again here. Okay. So it's like we are not learning from our past mistakes, or we are deliberately doing it.
Okay, and Obori, where does this leave now the students themselves? Because we are talking about the teachers, we are talking about the government, and parents and the children themselves who are going to be directly affected by this curriculum. We have not seen anywhere we are involving them. Are we subjecting the little ones to a lot of confusion with this system?
They are confused. I want to say, just like my colleague has said here without mincing words, they are confused. I have my son who is in class 2 right now. Yeah? You remember the Minister for Education saying, okay, this is the way to go. Okay? The materials have been supplied. And then you get the union saying, teach using the old curriculum. I remember this young man asking me in the house, I mean, which is which? Which is which? They are confused. And that is why now the clarity of what is supposed to happen should be made very clear. Very clear. This is where we are. This is how we are moving. I echo what he's trying to say, because we have been around here for quite some time now, when 844 started, yeah, it had a noble idea. And I remember the Karakanas, yeah, people going for, I mean, the government going for some of those teachers who were trained along those areas, coming in. But the first 5 years, there was a lot of confusion, a lot of it actually. And it ended up affecting the whole idea. The students, the pupils are the casualties. And honestly, we are affecting them. The truth of the matter is, we don't have materials, the infrastructure he was talking about. Books are not there. Some few days ago, some teachers were pointing, yeah, glaring mistakes on some of the textbooks. If you go to the market today, you want to buy a book for environmental activities, for example. I've sampled one, two. When I went looking for my class 2 child, of course I found one, two of those books. It's unfortunate I didn't carry. I normally read. You go through what these guys are learning. Okay, the material is there, but there are a few mistakes you note here and there, okay, which can be corrected.
So you're saying we are in a rush. That's what you're saying.
The rush is there. Let us not run away from it. And the top-down approach of doing things is not the best way of doing it. Engage people. You talk about collaboration and communication. If you break that communication, then you fail the whole activity.
Okay. Ochoy, CS Magoha, that's the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor George Magoha, has accused you teachers and the union, the teachers' union, that's NAT and KUPPET, for misleading teachers and misadvising them concerning the new curriculum system. He has pointed out that the unions are inciting teachers not to attend the trainings, and yet the teachers are complaining they are not aware of what's going on with this new curriculum.
I'm very sorry to say that. Magoha is not a teacher. And so he might not understand when a teacher says something, what really is talking about.
He was a lecturer, so I think...
No, being a lecturer is not being a teacher. There are two different things. A teacher, when I'm talking about a teacher, is a person who went through a professional training regarding some teaching methodologies. So that's what we go through. If you become a teacher, there are some units which you are trained specifically to be a teacher. There are some, because of their training, you become a doctor, you masters and PhD, then you go to class. That's not going to make you a teacher. So in this case, and looking at his personality, I'm not attacking his personality. That's how he is. But there's something which started happening within this government from 2013. You use the thorax. You believe in using the thorax. That's when you think you are working. We should not be having these kind of noises which we are having now. Remember, at the end of the day, as my colleague has put it, is the one who's going to suffer is not a teacher. The one who's suffering is the kid at a very tender age with a lot of confusion. The number two, there are some 4 pillars also of education, and among them is the values. Now, what kind of values do we want to instill to our learners when we as leaders, we are not engaging one another? You are shouting this, I'm shouting this, about the same thing. Then we are talking about values. So, are we going to make them learn from what you're teaching them, or are we making them learn from what we're doing? Remember, you learn from experience. So, meaning they're going to learn through our experiences. Number two, you read over the papers this morning. The DCIA officials are in Italy about the dams. The same paper again is talking about ESCC wanting to probe a certain governor because of the dam scam. So every other time you get the newspapers, there are scams, case of corruption, then what are we really trying to teach our kids? I mean, are we prepared for this? Are we becoming the Pharisees who could want to keep the law, but on the side stage here, they're doing some things different. Okay. So I don't think that we were in a position to roll out this program because we are not done thorough preparations.
Okay,
Just a quick comment
okay.
on the training. We were in university to train as teachers for 3-4 years. You know, that's a long period of time.
Yeah.
What am I trying to say? The point is this. The training the teachers, especially primary school teachers, are being undertaken, it's being rushed. I don't want to name anybody here, but I've interacted very closely with a family member who attends the trainings. A 2-3 days training to change the whole education system, in my view, I could be wrong and I stand to be corrected, it's a very short period of time. To be very honest, 2, 3, 4 days is not sufficient enough.
Okay. And the argument is teachers are trained professionally.
Yes.
Not to go and teach a certain curriculum, but to teach, the training is usually prepares you as teachers to teach, let's say, any curriculum. So the argument that was raised by CS Mago is that as a teacher, you don't need to go back then to class again so that you can be taught how to teach the new curriculum. It's all about being provided with the basics and the guidance, and then you're good to go. That's the argument.
Okay, the argument is valid, and I don't want to oppose what the minister is saying. I quite agree with it. But is the time sufficient?
Okay.
You're changing the whole system. You know, initially it was, if you remember, the whole system, it was 7, 4, 2, 3. To 8, 4, 4. The transition, I'm telling you, the way it was rushed, it brought about a lot of problems. These are some of the areas teachers are trying to raise. The way this thing is being rushed, we are not preparing, and the casualties are the young people, yeah,
Okay.
who the system is meant for. So once more, we are not opposed to the whole program. We support the program 100%, but the gray area should be addressed. I have indicated, because when this person comes back from the training, I get to interact with him or her. I mean, what have you gone through? Can I see what you've been taken through? You end up discovering very little is being achieved here.
Okay.
So that is why we are still into the training of the teachers. Let the teachers undergo a proper training.
Okay. And
Even when the heads were meeting in Mombasa, some of these things were raised. Yeah, we support it. A few weeks ago, when they were in Mombasa, we support the system, but there are challenges. Can the challenges be addressed?
Okay. And in the beginning of the year, that's I think January, before the Uhuru Kenyatta dissolved his cabinet again, CS Amina, that was the CS for education at that time, he came out clearly to indicate that the rollout of that system will not be possible. And then a few days later, he changed the tune. And then a few weeks then down the line, we saw the reshuffle, then Magoha came in. Do you think CS Amina maybe was right, but then because the government wanted to implement it, they saw her like she was somehow a stumbling block towards implementing of these curriculums. Then they moved her, then they replaced it with Magoha, and maybe Magoha has been also accused of not engaging the main stakeholders. Where does this place you as teachers, seeing all this confusion coming from the top and the people who expect you to implement the system? Maybe you can comment on that.
In fact, you made you note a very good point. Remember, when we are talking about cabinet secretary, that person is more of a spokesperson of the ministry. We have technocrats behind that person, and these are the very people who gives you that expert opinion. Is it something doable or it's not doable? So in other words, it boils back again to what we are talking about. So when the CS, Amina, talked about that they were to shelve the rollout of the program for some 2 or so years, I don't know, I think now that can be used to ascertain the claims we're making. that the preparations which were in place as per that time, they were not sufficient. And so they could not have supported the rollout of the program. And that's what we are really talking about here. In fact, when we are talking about the training and what it entails, the 7 competencies, let me give an example of the British curriculum. It's so much expanded that there is online training. You can just go to their site, they give you an account. So as a teacher, you have all the time. You can go back as many times as you want. Why? They understand that learning is not a process which you can do in a day or two. You cannot be able to cover all the areas sufficiently. And it's not practical to be done within that specific time. And that's why they have put that platform where you can always log in and learn, supplemented by materials and even in-person training. They have regional meetings for training. So what are we trying to say? That training is a critical component towards the success of this curriculum implementation. And let's not run away from the truth. The truth is, if we are not going to set aside enough resources in terms of preparing the teachers, then I don't think we are doing any justice to the Kenyan child.
Okay. And
if I can add something very small, it is within the prerogative of the president to reshuffle. Okay. And we are in a democratic state. You can do that in time. Let me be frank and say here, CS Amina was right at that particular time, even though the president was not very happy with her. We understand the president wants to secure his legacy, and some of us, we fully support him, yeah, in terms of leaving a legacy in all sectors of the Kenyan economy, where education plays a critical role. She was right. He has spoken something about the British curriculum. We are not, supporting that particular curriculum, but when you look at the 2663, the new system, there's a lot of borrowing, yeah, from that particular system. We happen to have known a few things about that curriculum, and it is time maybe we learn, learning from others, and then you fine-tune whatever you want to come up with is something which is very noble. Yeah. But Amina had something. She was the Minister of Education. The technical people were there. They must have given her the correct advice at that particular time. And when she came out to speak exactly what was supposed to be done.
Okay. And now let's talk about the facilitation issue. The government has budgeted around 300 billion towards the education and force funding the new curriculum system.
Yes.
And at the beginning of the year, we also saw another confusion when it comes to materials to be used. The parents are confused which books to use, which books to buy, or which one not to buy. And we have seen the government decided to deliver the books themselves to the schools. First of all, are the resources enough to facilitate this program?
The resources are not enough. That is a fact. We have children who are going to those schools. Some are in public schools, some are in private schools. And I want to be very honest. Private schools are really affected. That is why you see a few days ago, the primary school sector, the private sector was trying to come up and say, okay, why can't you get us involved? Yeah? Why can't you get us involved? We have not seen a lot in terms of, engaging the private sector. So that now, when you go to source for these materials, at times, you find those materials are not there. The government could have done it right by doing the delivery, which is okay. But the materials are not sufficient. The books are not there. If you go today to the bookshops, there are some books you cannot find. I went looking in town for a book for CRE, I think JKF, yeah, Jomo Kenyatta Foundation, it is the one which has been given that responsibility of, coming up with those materials. I went to almost 5 bookshops. I couldn't find that book to buy for my son because he was going to school, he's in class 2, he doesn't have that material. So where are the materials? They're not there, that's a fact. And anybody out there listening should understand that some children are going to school without the books. And I'm very sure our very able CS is very energetic. At times he moves around to see what is happening. He could have come across what you're saying here. The population of the students in schools against the materials is a problem.
You also raised a question of some materials being having some errors and some minor problems that should be solved. Now, a standard, this is a standard, let's say grade 1, grade 2, or grade 3 pupil might not be able to maybe to identify this a problem and this not a, maybe this an error and or not. Now, where do we put them in this the whole scenario?
The students are?
Yeah, the pupils, the students themselves. Where do
students might not discover because one, they're too young. This thing was even in the media, yeah. Parents came up, those who are teachers themselves, they came up, they pointed out there are errors here. Can you address these errors? We are seeing there's a mistake here. We are seeing there's a mistake here. Can you correct? Because we trust and believe when you take something to the young people down there, and it's coming from you as a teacher. Anything you tell them, they take it 100%. Okay. If you want to teach a mistake, they will take that 100%. So we are saying this. We support the CBC. It goes without saying. Okay. But can we address these gray areas?
Okay. Let's talk about the examination. They are now calling it assessment. I don't know where the difference is. Now, there'll be an issue of assessing these students, the grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3, and they've been calls to maybe subject grade 3 students to a national examination. The ministry has come out to say it's not an examination, it's an assessment. And of course, putting in mind that we also have the problem of the materials, and the materials available, they also have errors. Now, where are we as a country?
In fact, it takes me back again to revisit the question of collaboration. When you roll out a program, okay, Kenya has some very enterprising people, very enterprising. I remember we have what we call mainstream publishers and Juakali publishers. So the Juakali publishers, I'm sorry to use that term, not in any derogatory way, but I think we have an association of publishers. Yeah. So it means whether we like it or not, we should be having these Juakali publishers getting some materials from some writers, then putting it together and rolling out and putting new syllabus. We have seen it happen many times. Okay. So, which means again, the government has to engage the publishers through the association to see and to put the standards that before you do this, before you release a material, then something has to be done in terms of editing, in terms of going through, in terms of approving the text before it rolls out. Okay. So that one, I've not seen it, and it's one thing which the government has to really come out strongly. Number two, the main difference which I can also point out between the current system and the CBC is we are moving away from learning objectives to learning outcomes. You see, when we talk about an objective, you're simply saying by the end of this course, someone could be able to, okay. But when you're talking about a learning outcome, you are really looking at from the practical experience. Is this person able to do what is supposed to do as per this stage? So that again takes us back to to the assessment you're talking about. Okay, assessment, evaluation, it's a continuous process. That's what we call formative. You're progressing, okay? But how well? Do we have that assessment tool? Has it been really put to teachers because they are the main actors here? How are they going to assess? Naturally, I may not want to fail my students, naturally. But do we have those values now we are talking about as teachers, as a society, as a government, which can enable us to evaluate kids the way it's supposed to be? But at the end of the day, again, whether we call it an assessment, whether we call it what, there will be a kind of examination. There will be a kind of examination.
Okay, but the question is, why subjecting grade 3 students to national examination? Are they too young? And of course, bearing in mind, we have a lot of confusion. Even themselves, they are confused. Why then subject them to a national examination?
Call it a test, call it assessment, call it an exam. All those things, at the end of the day, they mean the same thing. Because KCPE is an assessment. KCSE is an assessment. Okay? At class 3, I don't want to lie that I've quite fully understood what these young people are going to be assessed, if we can use the term assessment. But assessment involves, these students being subjected to some kind of, exam. It can be written, it can be anything. When I was trying to understand the assessment in class, in grade 3, I discovered that the marking scheme, would enroll, oral questions so that you discover maybe the talent, what this particular child is very good at. It's a noble idea. But again, as a teacher, let me give an example. I'm sorry, I want to mention somebody I understand very well, my son. When he was in class 3, he used to tell me, Daddy, I want to become a pilot so that now I can drive according to him, aeroplanes. When he reached class 6, he changed tune. He told me, Daddy, you know what? Now, after listening, some conversations, there was a panel of lawyers. I normally watch morning sessions, in one of the mainstream media houses. I think when I look at that particular person, I want to become a lawyer. Now, when he went for more, he changed tune again. He told me this time, I think I can become an architect. Okay? I don't know what he'll become after clearing Form 4. What is the point? Some of those competence, there are some which can be consistent. There are some which can keep changing every now and again. But an assessment at that particular level needs to be fully explained. And you see, we are also meant to understand there will be another assessment in grade 6. Okay? Then they go to junior high.
And then the question is, should it be national examination or can it be done just locally? Because you understand, these students, they don't come from the same demographics.
Correct.
Backgrounds are different.
Yes.
The mode of teaching is also different.
Completely.
So, do you think that it could be better if maybe the teachers are left to assess the students themselves instead of
that is the way. That's what the ministry is trying to say. Now, the responsibility of down there, to assess and record, the competencies of this particular child in grade 3,
thank you.
Which is very noble. But again, it boils down to the training. I am speaking here because I have somebody who has been trained, but personally, I don't see any change in that particular person in terms of implementing the new curriculum. Let us be very clear, because we are helping the Minister of Education. And when you speak freely, as they say, a problem shared is a problem solved. This is a problem affecting us and our children. It is for the future generation. And let me say something small here, because I know we are running short of time. Something very small here. There is a lot of wisdom, when you engage people, even people down there.
Okay.
You know, if you are in an ivory tower, learn to come down and engage with everybody.
Okay.
What is the point? I used to see our CS, the former Minister of Education, Matiang'i, yeah, you know, visiting schools. You go to a class, you find that primary school teacher in class teaching, okay? And I used to like watching him, yeah, the way he used to do it. He could engage that particular teacher, learn a few things from him, goes to the management of the school, the administration, discuss a few things, etc. What is the point? I'm not in a position to advise our CS, but one day, why can't he surprise Sosion? He walks over to Mfangano, he engages Sosion in the office, they look at this thing together, and they find a solution.
Okay, I'll take that as your parting shot.
Yes.
Okay, Ochoi, as you finish,
Yes.
give you like 30 seconds. Maybe what do you think should be done from now forward? Because teachers, we have said you support them for the curriculum, but there's some ifs somewhere that need to be addressed. What do you think now should be the way forward from now?
Number one, there must be, and the underlying point here, there must be an engagement involving all the stakeholders. Then number two, the government should be and must be honest with itself. When there is a problem, let them accept we have a problem here. How can we address it? Okay. Yeah, you cannot impose some things on people and you expect to get the results you would want to get. Okay. But through engagement, we can be able to surmount some of the obstacles we are currently facing in the implementation of the new curriculum.
Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen.
Asante sana.
Thank you for coming.
Aye.
And of course, we will engage you more because these issues, we cannot discuss them in one show.
Sure.
So we have to plan another show maybe, and we elaborate more. And then, of course, what will have happened between now and then, we'll also put them into perspective and maybe discuss and elaborate for our viewers to understand more about this new curriculum. Asante sana. And of course, thank you so much also for keeping it GBS Morning Extra. My name has been Tom Wema, and of course, it's a pleasure always having you every morning right here on GBS. And now we are now wrapping up, but sports is coming up next with Kevin Nyariki to discuss more about AFCON and of course Kenya Premier League that is set to start next month. So for now, have a good day.